And then I'll have to let everyone in. Once I start talking, if one of you can keep an eye on the lobby, that would be good. Right, I'll let everyone in now, though. Hello, thank you for joining us. We'll get started in the next couple of minutes. Just whilst you're joining, this is being recorded and will be available afterwards. And because of that, if you don't want your full name on the screen, if you're happy just to leave this call, just edit your name and then rejoin with your initials or something else, just so you're aware that everybody can see kind of the name that you're joining with. We will get started in about a minute. I don't want to start too late, but I do just want to give a chance for everybody to get in from the lobby. So we should be good to go in the next minute or two. So for those of you that have just joined, we're going to get started in the next minute. Just a reminder that your full names are visible if you've put them in onto Teams. So if you'd rather that's not the case, then please feel free to leave the call and rejoin with just your initials or something else if you'd prefer. I think we'll give it till about 2 minutes past and then I'll get started, but there are still people coming in from the lobby. So for anyone just joining us, just a reminder that everybody's team's names that are on here are visible. So if you'd rather that not be the case, please just make sure you leave and rejoin with your initials. Right, it is 2 minutes past, so I think what we'll do is get started. So I'm just going to share my screen and then we'll do some introductions. Phoebe and David, if you could just let me know that you can see my screen. Hopefully that's now showing.
Yeah, we can see your screen.
Perfect, great. So I will get started, and then anyone that's kind of joining us hopefully can pick up where we are. We are recording this event, and it will be made available afterwards. So if you can't join us for the full evening, or if there's anything you want to recap on, that will be available afterwards on our website. So it's lovely to meet all. If I haven't met you before, then my name's Rio, and I'm the group head for progression to higher education for the Eastern Education Group. And that essentially means responsible for kind of overseeing all of our advice and guidance for students considering university. The information evening that we're about to deliver is for both One Sixth Form College and Abbeygate Sixth Form College Year 12 students. And aimed obviously at parents and carers. You should have your microphones and cameras switched off automatically, but if for any reason that hasn't worked, please just make sure you do have those off. We will have a chat and Q&A box open throughout the presentation, so you are welcome to put questions that you have in there as we go, and then at the end, we'll leave time to go through and answer those questions. But just to be aware of those chats are available for everybody to see. So if we can ask that you don't mention your student's name in the chat, and then we can pick that up with you separately if you've got a really specific question about your student. So I think we shall get started. As well as myself, I'm also joined on the call by Phoebe and David, who are the progression to higher education advisors at each of the different colleges. So I'm just going to hand over to them first of all to do a bit of an introduction, especially so that you can kind of signpost your student to go and speak to them in the future as well. Oh, I shall hand over to David first of all.
Okay, evening all. So my name is David, as Ria already introduced me. I'm the Senior Progression to HE Advisor at Abigail Sixth Form College. You can find me, or your students can find me, on the second floor in the Next Steps area. I can support the students with their UCAS applications, their personal statements, help them with their university course choices, and along with Aim Higher, support them with any additional questions regarding universities, transition, and finance. I've included the QR code for referral form where students get a chance to book an appointment where they can discuss these questions, or they can also discuss career questions with our career advisors. So hopefully we'll see your students soon.
Great, thank you, David. And Phoebe, I'll pass over to you.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Phoebe Sizer, and I'm the Progression to Higher Education Advisor at 16th Form College. And I am based in the Green Zone on the ground floor. And much like what David said, at Abigail at Sixth Form, at 16th Form, we also have a referral form to see either myself or the careers advisors. And this is just about their progression after college. We also have the Aiming Higher Padlet on here, which is for information about university. So this is going to have information about how to write a personal statement or interviews, or maybe even stuff about open days or taster sessions. And this is emailed out weekly to the students. So if they are wanting to know more about university, then they can look at the Aiming Higher Padlet. Thank you.
Great, thanks, Phoebe. So I suppose always a good place to start is what is the Aim Higher program, and hopefully you're semi-aware of it already just by wanting to join this call. But it is a program that we run for students to support them with considering competitive university courses, and in particular early entry courses. So we do have a focus on Oxford, Cambridge, medicine, dentistry, and vet medicine. But actually, the way that the program is designed and the content that we're covering, it's relevant for all students who are considering other competitive courses. So, for example, at the Russell Group. So that's some of the things that we'll look into today. I will just caveat with we've done a few of these events, and sometimes technology doesn't always work how we want it to. It is at the moment, but I did forget to say at the start, if we do have any tech issues, just bear with, and we will restart and get back up and running if we need to. So yes, what we're going to look at is those early entry courses in particular, and I'm going to give a very brief overview of what's different about those courses and what they're looking for from their students. I will be doing that again for medicine, dentistry, and vet medicine. I'm aware that people on this call will have students who are interested in competitive universities or Cambridge or Oxford, or medicine and dentistry, but I've kept it very brief. So hopefully if that particular part isn't relevant for you, you won't have to listen to it for too long. We'll also take a look at what's involved in the application process, some timelines and some dates, just to give you an idea about what this kind of next year or so looks like for your students, how we run the Aim Higher programme and what support's on offer, and then what students can start doing now already if they're considering these courses. So the first place I'm going to start is Oxbridge and Russell Group universities. So we're going to have a look at kind of what's different and why the programme needs to run to be able to support those students. So firstly, if we look specifically at Cambridge and Oxford, it is no surprise to anybody that it is a world-class education and that they rank continuously in the top of the league tables. But I think when we look at competitive universities and Oxford and Cambridge, it's important to think about why would a student want to go there, other than obviously it sounds impressive, but actually what are they gaining from that? So Oxford and Cambridge do have, again, world-class facilities. So students there have access to hundreds of libraries, museums, research equipment, lots of different funding. They're very well supported by their alumni who donate a lot to the universities for students to be able to kind of access lots of different opportunities. One of the big differences about Cambridge and Oxford that I always like to make sure students are aware of straight away is the course offer. So these universities offer actually a really comparatively small list of courses compared to other universities. And even though they might offer the same type of courses, actually they're delivered in a very different way. So it's really important that the students are really happy with the course that's on offer. Because obviously that is the main reason that they're going there. Teaching and learning style is very different. So rather than always having kind of larger group sessions, the main difference at Cambridge and Oxford is that they have very small group tutorials and supervisions. So that could be one-on-one kind of sessions with the academics, or one academic and 2 or 3 students. So it's quite a different environment to learn in. They are very well known for the career prospects and employability afterwards, and they have an incredible career service both at the university and after students graduate as well. And then the main thing is, again, that kind of separates them is their college system. So there is, in theory, no one particular University of Cambridge. It's actually built up of, around 25 to 30 different colleges that make up the university. And we find that students really do sometimes fixate on that and try and figure out what colleges they like, but ultimately the kind of same class of education and support is available across all of those. So if we think about a standard UCAS application for a second, and what I will say is that this session today is specifically about the Aim Higher kind of courses. Actually, in the spring term of year 12, we do a lot of work with all of our students on all of kind of general HE guidance, and that includes parent information events specifically around UCAS, personal statements, student finance. So if I go through this very briefly now, it's because we go through it in a lot more detail after Christmas and into the spring term. But for a standard UCAS application, students have until the January deadline of year 13 to apply. But with Oxford and Cambridge, they are classed as early entry applications. And so we have this earlier deadline of the 15th of October. And what that means is everything they're doing to prepare is brought forward. So that's kind of the main difference in terms of the UCAS application. You notice on here we've got 5 choices, so students can make 5 university choices, but only one of those can be Cambridge or Oxford. So that's another kind of main difference as well. Aside from the deadline, other differences are, as I've already mentioned, that course choice in university research. The courses are very different. They're taught in a very different way. And so the students need to be really confident that that course is the right one for them. Really important is the subject exploration before the beyond the curriculum, which I'll talk about in a bit more detail in a second. Cambridge absolutely love to get students to fill out a form, and so there are lots of additional forms that you have to complete as part of a Cambridge application, although that definitely shouldn't be a barrier, and that's kind of why the programme exists, is to support those students with that. Some courses at Cambridge and Oxford also ask for written work to be submitted. And again, a lot of courses at Cambridge and Oxford will ask for an admissions test to be sat as part of their decision-making process. And then both Cambridge and Oxford do interviews for their courses as well. So that's kind of the key differences in the application process. I'm just going to mention the Russell Group. So the Russell Group don't have a different application process. They don't have a different UCAS application process in the way that Oxford and Cambridge do, but they are incredibly competitive. And we would say that the information that students use to make an application that's a strong application to Cambridge and Oxford is the same level they need to be aiming at to look at these Russell Group universities as well, although with some key differences. So the Russell Group is a group of 24 universities that are known to be the top universities in the country. However, I will caveat that with just because a university isn't on this list doesn't mean it's not an incredible university. And we really encourage students to do their research and look at their particular course, the league tables for their course, but also the facilities, the teaching, and everything like that for their course as well, not just kind of, are they in the Russell Group, yes or no? That's not the only kind of factor they need to think about. So Russell Group universities are known to be world-leading research universities. So over 2/3 of the research that comes out of the UK is done with Russell Group universities. They receive a lot of funding for that research, and they can therefore attract some of the best kind of teachers and academics, and so they are known for obviously their outstanding teaching and learning. They have really incredible links with businesses and industries. And if we look at that kind of financial side of things, on average, Russell Group universities spend 50% more per student than other UK universities. And that can feed through to things like equipment, teaching, but also other things like support and welfare and accommodation and those type of things as well. Again, as I said at the start, it's not to say that other universities don't offer this, but this is what the Russell Group are known for. So if we think about the Russell Group and Oxford and Cambridge, what are they looking for from the students that are applying to them? So for Cambridge and Oxford, we're typically looking at A star, A star A to AAA at a minimum for the academic grades. But across the Russell Group, this can be a bit lower. So across the Russell Group, it's generally between those A stars and then ABB. For some of the courses, they have very subject-specific requirements for their A levels. So, for example, if you want to study chemistry at Oxford, you need to have studied chemistry A level is one of those examples. So for the most part, Oxford and Cambridge only really look at A-level qualifications, although there are a few exceptions to that. So we can have a look at that if anyone wants us to in a bit more detail. The Russell Group are much more flexible and they do accept normally A-levels, but also for some courses, BTECs as well. So there's a bit of research to be done, but it is possible to apply to Russell Groups with BTEC qualifications and across most universities in the UK with BTEC qualifications as well, definitely. So outside of these kind of academic criteria, obviously everybody applying for those courses has those grades. So they're also looking for students who can think critically and independently, and that have a genuine motivation and enthusiasm for their course. And the way they do that and the way that we support the students through the AIM Higher programme, and this goes for medicine and dentistry and vet med as well, is through supercurricular activities. So they're really looking for students who are taking what they're learning beyond the classroom. So a lot of the AIM Higher programme at the start is focused on exploring those supercurricular activities, and we try to split them into different categories. So I've got those up on the screen, and we try to get students to think about what books they might have read, if they've watched documentaries, if they've listened to particular podcasts, if they've done any work experience, or if they've been to a museum, or if they've been to kind of a webinar or a taster session, all of those type of things that they're doing around the subject they're interested in. That's the really key part to making a strong application, and that's where we see the biggest amount of success is for those students that are doing these types of things outside of lessons. So I'm just going to briefly go through the differences with medicine, dentistry and vet medicine. I am conscious that that is for a smaller group of parents, but I will go through this relatively quickly, and then we have more detail available for the students that we go through, and I can also share more detail afterwards if you'd like to as well. So if we look at medicine and dentistry, the kind of key differences with applying for these is that they are a career choice, not just a university course choice. They too, like Oxford and Cambridge, have extra parts of the admissions process compared to a standard application, and they are an early entry course. So again, we're looking at the 15th of October. For the most part, medicine and dentistry courses have an AAA entry requirement, but there are contextual offers and there are some slightly lower offers available around AAB, and some of the most competitive medical schools will set an entry requirement of A star AA. So I always like to speak to the students about this kind of journey to medicine. So actually the application stage is our final stage. And if we're thinking about a career, we would approach that as a journey. So really thinking about why they want to be a doctor or a dentist specifically. One of the main questions you'll get asked at a medicine interview is why a doctor? Why not another kind of healthcare professional? And to do that, they need to explore all the different jobs that are available in the NHS and make sure that this is the right one for them. I've mentioned already the academic record. They do typically look for biology and chemistry at A level, and also to have a strong science background, so relatively high GCSEs in the science subjects. Again, this is a very general overview, but there are exceptions to this and there are alternatives ways to access medicine if you don't have biology or chemistry, or if you don't have those science GCSEs, and we can work with the students on those if that's the case. The most important thing throughout this journey to medicine is really understanding the skills, values, and attributes that it takes to be a good doctor or a good dentist, because at every stage of the application, these are the types of things that you're going to be tested on. So we do a lot of work in exploring those skills and attributes. And then finally, we get to kind of the point of application. So for vet medicine, again, very different. And we do have a smaller group of students that apply for vet medicine. And so we do a lot of work with those students on a one-to-one basis. There is more limited choice. So there are only 11 vet schools that students can choose from. Again, they're early entry. So we've got that 15th of October deadline. There are additional application forms, and probably the biggest difference with vet medicine is work experience. There is a very common myth that for standard medicine and dentistry, you need a huge array of different work experiences. And actually, that's not the case. There's no set requirements. And we'll talk about that in a bit more detail. But for vet medicine, there is very strict requirements. And so it's really important that students understand that they, how to get that work experience, and also that they've met those hours, because that is part of the decision-making process. And again, similar grade profile. There are a couple of vet schools that will allow access with AAB, but typically we're looking at AAA. I think I said at the start, this will be recorded and put on the website, and we can also share the slides. And what I've linked here is the admissions process PDF for the vet schools. And that is really, really useful guide to get the students started, because it goes through each of the different vet schools and it sets out their admissions requirements, and also some interesting statistics, some information about work experience. And it will tell the students kind of how much of the offer is weighted on an interview or work experience and that type of thing. So I always find that a really useful document, rather than looking at all the different websites. It kind of puts it all in one place. So I have linked that in the slides for when that goes round. So if we look at then dates and deadlines, so as I mentioned, whether it's these early entry courses or whether it's a standard university course, but it's competitive, we are moving everything slightly earlier. So I think this is probably useful just to give the students and yourselves an idea of what their kind of year 12 and year 13 looks like. So I'm just going to go back to those other slides in a second, but if we look at year 12, this is where the students should really be doing their supercurriculars. So they need to understand what those are, and that's what we work with them on, and they need to know how to find them, and they need to be enjoying them. That's a really massive part of the supercurricular kind of side of it. It should always be activities the students are enjoying, and if they're not enjoying them, then they're not adding any value to their application in the future. So that's kind of the key thing that we're looking at in year 12. For students that are considering medicine, dentistry, and vet medicine, again, year 12 is that great opportunity, especially January, February, March, spring term, to get that work experience. That's part of year 12. And to really start exploring universities and the research that they need to do for that, and understanding what their interests are and how that can relate to a university course. If we look at the summer term of year 12, it's starting to look at the admissions tests that might be required for their particular course, and understanding how to get booked in for those, and preparing. And then also what we hope is that by the summer holidays, our students applying to competitive universities have their personal statement written. We offer workshops over the summer, so the whole progression to HE team, we work year round, not just in the term time. So if they can have a first draft written by the summer, it means that we've got plenty of time to work with them on that by the time that they come back in September. So September of year 13 is all about finalising their personal statement and preparing their UCAS application for the 15th of October. After the 15th of October deadline is when the universities that do this will ask for additional forms and written work. So certainly for VetMed, and certainly for Cambridge as well. Medical schools more recently have started to ask for more questionnaires after the application deadline. We've definitely seen that this year, an increase in the kind of forms and additional questionnaires that they're being sent for medicine. And then interviews. So for Cambridge and Oxford, they interview in November and December. And for medicine and dentistry, they have a broader kind of timescale. So they can interview as early as November and as late as February, and anywhere in between as well. So that's what those look like. And I've just put an example up here that Oxford have of their admissions kind of timescales, which includes things like the tests and the written work. And then just a kind of reminder that the only courses that have to apply by the 15th of October are those early entry courses, which is Oxford, Cambridge Medicine, Dentistry or Vet Medicine. And if a student is applying for 4 other courses and 1 early entry course, then their whole application goes off by the 15th of October. If there's no early entry courses on their application, then but there are other competitive courses, then they have until the January deadline. So hopefully that gives you, although brief, a good overview of the type of differences in these application processes. And so obviously you'll want to know what we can do to support the students, and that's what we do through the AIM Higher programme. So we split the AIM Higher programme into 2 parts. We have the AIM Higher programme that runs for Oxbridge and competitive courses, and then we have a stream of the programme that runs for medicine and dentistry, which we do through MedSoc. And then, as I say, we support the Vet Med students as and when depending on the group size. So if we have a smaller group this year, we'll do some small group sessions and one-to-ones. If we have a larger group this year, then we will run those kind of larger workshops. So we do workshops and presentations, and that will either be delivered by ourselves, or we like to bring in as many guest speakers as possible. We've got really good links with Oxford and Cambridge, but also places like Exeter and Durham and Sheffield, for example, who have all come in and delivered sessions for us before. We also try to bring in our ex-students. We had a massive amount of success last year, particularly if we think of medicine and dentistry, where we had at Abbeygate, 10 out of 15 of our students receiving medicine offers, and at one we had 4 out of 7 receive offers as well. So those students are always keen to come back in and support us and support the new students as well. Alongside those presentations and workshops, there are one-to-ones that are available, and then we also keep students up to date with lots of different physical and digital resources. And then a nice picture here on a quite cloudy day of us visiting the University of Cambridge. So where possible, we do try to build in some trips for those students as well. I've given a couple of examples here of some of the sessions that we've run. We do have our sessions that we have in place for all students because that's what the information that they need, but we also tailor it to the different subject interests that the students have, and we bring in the curriculum staff to kind of do those more subject specific activities as well. So we've done critical thinking workshops, we're doing super curricular activities, and for MedSoc, as I say, we focus a lot on helping students with work experience, but mainly understanding the skills, values and attributes of a doctor. And both David and Phoebe, who are on the call, will know because we literally did this last week. We also run mock interviews for all of our students. So last week we did some mock MMIs for our medicine and dentistry students as well. We like to make sure that the students have access to lots of different resources. So on the screen here, we've got, as Phoebe mentioned already, our AIM Higher Padlet. There are some incredible summer schools and taster days and online competitions that the students can be doing to boost their application, and we post those on the Padlet so that they've got a kind of go-to place for that. We also have a careers team, so they also have a Padlet looking at apprenticeships, employment and work experience. Our LRCs stock a really good range of books and resources for early entry courses. So I always suggest to students, to start their research, they can go and have a look at some of those on offer. We set the students up in the spring term with a UCAS Hub account, and that does again give them access to lots of different resources. And then just as a reminder, they have their dedicated progression to HE advisor at each college, but also their PPT and their careers team. And at both Abbeygate and One, we also now have our work experience team available as well. So hopefully there's a good range of different people that can help students. So what can they start doing now? I would say we really value your support in encouraging the students to do different parts of this that can really help their application. So first of all is thinking about those super curricular activities. Often when we introduce super curricular activities to the students, they think, oh God, I haven't done that, or I haven't, I need to go and do, read 20 different books. And actually the first thing is really thinking, well, you probably have done done something already. You know, if you've ever read a book about your subject, if you've, you know, put a documentary on, if you like listening to a comedy podcast that is also a science podcast, you know, there's probably things that they're doing already that are super curricular activities. And it's just thinking about how they can take that further. You know, their subject teachers are going to be kind of excellent go-to people for recommending different books or things to watch. And our first session that we do with the students on supercurricular activities is how to find them. And we go through loads of different places that they could try to find them. But it might be a good conversation to start of the type of things that they might have done already. If we think of supercurricular activities, that also feeds through into the clubs and societies that are offered at college. I've read lots of personal statements where students have talked about, you know, a topic they've looked at in debate club or things that they've looked at in kind of science club or things like that. So first of all, they can see what they can be part of within college. I think if students have an awareness of the timelines and deadlines and the different dates and important milestones that come up in this process, that can really help them as well. So familiarising themselves with that. One of the big things with Oxford and Cambridge particularly is when you get to the interview stage, they want to see that passion and enthusiasm from students. So I'd really encourage students to be going home and talking about their supercurricular activities or talking about the things that they've learned. I am not a mathematician. However, I can still sit with a math student and they can tell me something really interesting about maths. And actually, it's more just them getting into the practice of speaking out loud about their subject. It's something they'll be tested on further down the line. So the more practice they can have, the better. A bit of a plea, and I do appreciate that students get a lot of emails, but we do communicate to the students through emails. If there is anything happening in college, one of the places that they'll find out about it is on their emails. So if we can encourage them to check their emails as much as possible to make sure they're not missing anything. I've put the dates up here for the student launch events at each of the colleges. They are both next week. We are aware of a few trips that are running also next week. So we'll also be doing a recap in January for anyone that isn't able to make these sessions. So at one, we have the Oxbridge and Competitive Universities launch on the 11th, which is the Wednesday, and then the MedSoc and VetMed one on the Friday the 13th. And then at Abbeygate, they are both on Wednesday, the 11th of December, but at different times depending. The only other thing I would add to this is we do have students now who are applying for VetMed at Cambridge or medicine at Cambridge. So they are absolutely welcome to join both of those. We don't run them on the same days at the same time. So they are welcome to come along to both of those if they'd like to. Both Phoebe and David did talk about our referral form, so students can book a one-to-one. At the moment, our referral form is incredibly busy because we are supporting the Year 13s who have just had their internal deadline for their UCAS applications, and we're processing those ready for the January deadline. But I'd absolutely still encourage students to fill out a referral form. It might just be a slightly longer wait than normal. We are doing the launch activities next week, and then our sessions and our workshops will begin after that in January on a regular basis. So hopefully that's been useful for you to get a bit of an idea about the types of courses that the students are applying to, those differences, and kind of what support is on offer. Throughout the year, we do share newsletters and the Padlet information, so that's another really good way of keeping up to date with all the dates and the deadlines that are coming up as well. So I will just have a look and see if we've had any questions. We haven't at the moment, so if anyone does have any questions, please feel free to put those in the chat and we can talk through anything that you would like to know. So I'll just open that up to make sure. I haven't got any questions at the moment, so maybe we've been super thorough and or or shocked you into silence, one of the two. But if we don't have any questions, I'll give it another minute, and if we don't have any questions, then I am happy to end up there, and we can share the recording, as I said. And then also, if you do want to ask us questions more specific to your students and don't want to do that on a public forum, we can, of course, catch up afterwards. And what I might actually just do is put actually Phoebe and David, if you could just put your email addresses into the chat, and then if anyone does have any questions that they want to ask separately, then they can contact you. That would be really useful. Um, so we've got a thank you, but no. Oh, we have had a question. Yes. So there's so the question is that I mentioned league tables for various courses and where is the best place to find them. There are a million different league tables, and you could get lost in trying to kind of match up all of them. I use two of them when I'm speaking to the students. I use the Good University Guide and the Guardian League tables. I find those most useful because you can filter by subject really easily, and it displays the kind of different categories quite nicely as well. So they measure things like student satisfaction, they measure things like employability afterwards. So yeah, I would say the Good University Guide and the Guardian are the two go-to places. Great. So I can't see any other questions at the moment. We will just stay on for an extra couple of minutes in case there are any. And as I say, thank you so much for joining us. Hopefully it's been useful, and we will make sure this recording is available. It does take us a little bit of time to get it on the website, so it should be up hopefully in the next few days. And actually, we've just had a question again about the student talks. So let me just see if, again, David and Phoebe, are you happy to put the dates for the student talks in the chat? I mean, just to recap, we've got Wednesday the 11th at 1 is for the Oxbridge and competitive universities. Friday the 13th is for medicine, dentistry, and vet med. And then at Abbeygate, both of those talks are happening on Wednesday the 11th, one after each other, at 1:30 and 1:55. All of the students across both colleges have been sent a poster with information about how to come to the launch events as well. Um, Hopefully that's answered your question, Abby. You have your hand up, so but I think it was just to ask the question that you've put in the chat. But I am happy to unmute you for a second. And was that everything, Abby? Sorry. Yes, great. Perfect. Oh, third child going through the process. Okay, so it has probably been quite stressful in your house over the last few years then. I know it's yeah, quite an intense time. You'll be an expert now after the third. As I say, if you don't have any questions, please feel free to go, and hopefully that's been useful. But I will just continue on the call in case there are any other questions. Um, we don't have a date yet in January because we just want to make sure that there's no other trips taking place in January. That means they can't make that one either. But we should have that within the next few days. I'd say by the end of next week, we should be able to share the January date. So no, we don't have it at the moment, but we should do in the next few days. And if someone can't join next Wednesday, if they do want to email David or Phoebe in the meantime, then they can let them know when that date is in January, although it will be advertised to all students again. You're very welcome. Okay, I don't think we have any more questions. I think it's probably covered most of those. I'll just check both the chat areas. No, brilliant. Okay. Well, as I say, hopefully there's some information in there that can start some really good conversations at home. And if there's anything you want to recap on or any questions that you've got, then you can contact David and Phoebe as well. And hopefully we'll see some of the students at the launch with those next week, or coming through on the referral form as well. But yeah, thank you very much for joining us and enjoy the rest of your evening.